Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new to the channel, I'm Kain, a League of Legends player, content creator and a very passionate coach. If you're interested in booking me as your personal coach, feel free to check out the link in the description down below. But as for today's video, I'll be teaching you all the Leblanc combos you might need in your games. So without further ado, let's get started. Already at level 1, you have multiple options that you could go for. On most champions, you have a predefined ability that you want to level at level 1. However, when you play Leblanc, you could actually make an argument to opt for selecting basically every single ability here out of these three. However, the most standard pick is going to be W. Now, if you do W level 1, the reason why it's so good is because it gives you a lot of damage. Especially with Electrocute, it synergizes really well with that. So let me show you how you can proc Electrocute with this combo. So you do auto attack, W, auto attack, and you go back. And this way you do a lot of burst damage and you can immediately go back to your W, so you avoid taking a lot of damage yourself. And the implication with this that might be important later on in this video is that when you W and you do an auto attack, look, the auto attack went off really quickly. So basically in slow motion, I do this, I W and then I auto attack, but look how quick it goes. The auto attack already went off. Now, if you do auto attack W, now the auto attack takes a lot longer to do. So that is an implication for the later combos. So you can already keep that in mind. But if you W, your next auto attack after W is really quickly, if you did not do an auto attack before your W. Now, what you really need to keep in mind when you play Leblanc is that the majority of players will take a bone plating into you. So a lot of your combos will have to take bone plating into account. For those of you who don't know what bone plating is a rune where if you attack somebody for the first 1.5 seconds and for the first 3 spells that you do or attacks, you deal less damage to them basically. So typically it lasts 1.5 seconds bone plating. So typically what you want to do, for example, before you want to do this, if you do an auto attack, W auto attack, and with Electrocute proc, their bone plating can basically block that entire damage if you do it this fast. However, keep in mind that you can just proc bone plating with just doing an auto attack. Then you wait 1.5 seconds and then you do your combo. Because you will still be able to proc Electrocute. Because for Electrocute, look, you have 3 seconds time to deal the damage basically. So if I want to proc my Electrocute, I have to do 3 separate attacks or abilities within 3 seconds time. But bone plating is only 1.5 seconds. So if I just do an auto attack, I wait 1.5 seconds, and now I do W auto attack. I will also proc Electrocute, and my W auto attack Electrocute will not be blocked by bone plating. Only my first auto attack will be blocked by bone plating. As Leblanc, you can also start Q level 1. Why would you ever want to start Q level 1 on Leblanc? Well, basically in matchups where you're scared to jump onto them with your W because you might take a lot of damage from the minion wave or from your opponent. So typically Q is more if you want to poke your opponent. Also, it has a lot shorter cooldown than your W at level 1. So definitely it's a poking tool. So if you want to poke your opponent level 1, it's also a good option. And on top of that, it synergizes really well with Electrocute as well. So how could you proc Electrocute? You do an auto attack Q, followed by another auto attack, and now you have Electrocute proc. Something to keep in mind, if you play versus a bone plating champion, then you would do an auto attack, wait 1.5 seconds for the bone plating to expire, and then you would follow up with an auto attack Q. So this way you can also proc your Electrocute, but then you avoid getting blocked by the bone plating. So if somebody has bone plating, don't just do auto attack Q auto attack. No, we're not going to do that. If they have bone plating, we're going to do auto attack. We wait for the bone plating to expire, and then you can do auto attack Q. And also you notice that I say auto attack Q. Auto attack Q feels smoother and is potentially even faster. It at least feels a lot smoother than doing Q auto attack, right? Q auto attack feels really smooth. Now, as Leblanc, you could also start E level 1. You could also make arguments for that. Especially think of when you're invading with your team, then it might be important to keep somebody in place rather than just to deal damage. Because if you just deal damage, they might flash away. But also in lane, actually, E level 1 could be useful, especially in melee matchups where you can get free chains off. You definitely use this tool to your advantage. I specifically really like this when I play versus an Irelia, because Irelia is a melee matchup where I can easily hit this on, and also Irelias, they typically are very predictable in their movement. When your minions are low, they're going to Q onto them to get the Q stack. So if I know that my minion is here, for example, and it's getting low, and Irelia is going to dash towards it, so let's say she's about to dash to it right now. I'm just going to E and I will have a free E onto her. Now E gives you the most amount of damage at level 1 out of all your abilities because not only does it proc once, it procs twice and it allows you to do auto attacks along the way basically. So you can weave in a lot of auto attacks. So for example here, I hit my E, but I also do auto attacks, right? And I can even do one more auto attack and now I get out. So it does like a lot of damage, as you can see here. So there is actually very strong. The only problem is, yeah, it's almost impossible to hit this in most matchups, especially in ranged matchups and even in many melee matchups. So it's only good in like specific melee matchups, like Irelia, for example. But definitely experiment with this and see what you can do with it. Also, keep in mind, if you play versus like an Irelia or anything, a champion that has bone plating, again, you don't want to start with E and then keep on auto-attacking because a lot of your damage will be blocked by bone plating. So in that case, always look for your opponents if they have Resolve Tree, see if they have bone plating by first attacking them. If they have bone plating now, you will remove the bone plating and then you can follow up with your E, right? So always play around bone plating. Now, something else you need to know with your E is that you can, on Leblanc, you don't have to, like, if I want to hit my opponent here, let's say here, I don't have to flash and then E. I don't have to do that. I could also press E flash. So right now this is out of my range, but if I first press E and then I will flash afterwards, it will also hit. So I'm going to do it fast right now. So this is not going to hit. So obviously it doesn't hit. So look, E flash and it also hits. So this is especially important in the laning phase. Look, if I place another dummy here, right? In laning phase, you're not going to have two champions standing behind each other. But, like sometimes you might if you get ganked. But typically laning phase, the minions are going to be the main threat for you to be able to like not hit your chain. So sometimes if this is a minion and you want to hit your opponent thinks that he's safe. So instead of like flash and then E, because this they can easily react to this, you might just E flash. If you do it quickly, you're still going to be able to hit it. And this is almost undodgeable for your opponent. Now, another reason why the E flash is so important is not only do you want to E flash over obstacles, like let's say there's minions here, but E flash you also want to do to make sure that your opponents can't flash out of your range. Look at my flash range here. Look at how short that range is compared to my E range, right? Right now, so here I'm in flash range, right? But my E goes a lot further than that. That means right now that if I E this opponent, he can probably just flash out of my range and he's not going to get rooted. So sometimes when you hit your opponent with E and they're about to flash out, flash onto them. If you flash onto them, now they can't flash out. Now, depending on the champion, sometimes a champion is scary to literally flash onto them because now they can like auto-attack you like a Z or something. So then you don't have to literally flash onto them, but at least like flash closer to them, right? So let's say that this champion wants to flash right now. So he's in range, he wants to flash. I'm just going to flash onto him. And now even if he were to flash away, he will still get hit by my root. That is why this is also quite important. Once you hit level 2 on Leblanc, you will typically have the QW combo available. So assuming that at level 1 you either started W or Q, then your next ability that you should upgrade is typically also W or Q. So that at level 2 you have the QW combo, which is going to be looking like this. QW, auto attack, and we go out. This is going to be the standard trading pattern for Leblanc from like level 2 onwards. This is going to be a great opportunity, a great combo that you can use to trade onto your opponents. So the combo, so why a lot of people do this as well. They auto attack, then they Q, then they W, and then they get out. That is fine. The only problem is it's a little bit slower. And it's also a little bit more predictable. If you're already in range to Q or like in range to auto attack, they might already like walk out of you, out of your range, and then it's difficult to hit the rest of your combo. So what I like to do, once I get in range for Q, that means I'm also in range for W typically. So then what I like to do is Q immediately W, auto attack, and get out. Also, like I said before, don't know if you remember, but if you W and you do an auto attack, then the animation of your auto attack is really, really quick. So that is why I don't like you could do Q auto and W, it's fine. But it's easier to hit your combo if you immediately do like, you walk up and then you go like QW auto attack and you go out. That's the easiest way to hit it. Again, keep in mind, if you play versus a bone plating champion, then you might first have to make sure that they don't have bone plating anymore. The way you can proc this is typically you proc this by auto attacking. Now they don't have bone plating anymore, and then a little bit later, while it's still on cooldown, you go for a QW auto attack combo, right? But playing around bone plating is again very important. Now you don't always have to do the auto attack first. So I just said, hey, we do an auto attack, right? And then we wait for the bone plating, and then we go for the QW combo, auto attack, and we get out. You don't always have to do that. You could also just Q. Now you wait out the bone plating, and then you W afterwards. And the reason for that is because your Q lasts for 3.5 seconds onto your opponent. Whereas bone plating, once it's activated, it only is up for 1.5 seconds. So your Q is a lot longer up than your bone plating. So if you Q somebody, you can just wait out the bone plating and then W anyway and do the combo as well. Only problem with that is obviously once you hit your Q onto your opponent, they're going to be playing very, very safe and walk back because they know that you want to W onto them. That's why I like to do it with an auto attack, because now you don't have a Q onto them, their bone plating is gone, and they're still going to feel relatively safe because you haven't done Q yet, and then you just surprise them with QW auto attack, and boom, you have a great trade. Now, with that being said, this is all fun and games in the lower elo bracket, but once you play versus better players, this standard combo of QW is not easy to hit, I can tell you that. So what's going to happen typically is you're going to have to W first, and then do an auto attack and Q. So for example, instead of doing the QW auto attack combo, what you want to do against better players, or what you will have to do against better players, is W auto attack Q and then get out. Now you might say, well, isn't that the same? Like whether I QW onto them or just W and Q? No, because if you do Q, your Q is slightly more range than your W. So typically your opponents are going to space pretty well. So they're going to be able to hit your Q before you can hit W. The moment you see your Q, they're going to play very, very safe and they're going to back away properly because they know what they're doing. So then they don't expect it that you will W in if you don't Q them because you don't get the empowered damage from breaking the Q sigil. So just Wing them, they don't expect this. And that's why it's still good to do this. And you can also proc electrocute this way. So you W, you auto attack, and you Q, and you go back. This way you proc electrocute. You don't proc your sigil, that's true, but at least you got damage off on your opponent. And since they're good opponents, this is probably the best thing you could do. Against even better opponents, or against opponents who play really, really safe and you still want to do damage to them, then sometimes you can't even get in W range, right? Even if you don't Q them, they're still not going to walk up into your W range. Think of something like Xerath. What you could do in those matchups is you use W as a gap closer. So even at level 2, you could do this. You W forward, and now you do like auto attack Q, and you just bully your opponent, right? And then you go back to your W, obviously. So the way you do it is, okay, you play versus a long range champion like a Valkos, Xerath, they never walk up in your range. W forward, auto, Q, auto, proc your electrocute, and then you go back to your W. Now, when you play Leblanc, you could also have EQ up at level 2. Especially when we said like, hey, we play into something like an Irelia, you level E level 1, then your next ability could be Q. You could argue, okay, you go for W because it gives you raw damage and it helps you escape. But since Q does not only damage, it helps you farm better, and also it helps you proc your E damage as well. It's typically a great combination to always unlock Q either at level 1 or level 2. So let's say you have EQ up at level 2. Like for example, when you play versus something like Irelia, you have two options what you could do. You could E your opponent and then Q to proc your Q damage. This is really nice. Only problem with this could be that if you do this against an opponent, look, it takes relatively long time before you deal the damage. Right? That's the issue. So maybe if you play versus Irelia, while you do this, she might Q onto you and get a lot of damage off onto you, right? That could be one thing. That's the negative thing. The positive thing is that if you EQ, I can auto attack in between. So I get a lot of damage off here, right? It's a lot of damage, but I'm also a little bit more vulnerable because as the chain is rooting, I still have to stay in relatively short range. So the alternative to that would be you first throw out Q and now you proc your Q with your E. And then typically now you might say, okay, but if I QE, now I also have to stay in range for my E to proc. Not really. If you do the QE combo, you don't really play for this here. You don't really play for the root, but you play for the initial burst of proccing your Q with the E. That's basically your goal here. And then you can walk out if you want to. So QE is just a very quick burst trade onto your opponent, and then you can back to safety. So that's the difference between those two ways of trading with EQ or QE. Now, at level 2, you might also have the EW combo unlocked. This is also fine. You shouldn't have this combo that much up because typically, like I said, at level 2, you want to at least have your Q so that any other ability that you have here, whether it's W or E, you can empower its damage. That's why typically EW is not a great start to play the game. But sometimes you just have this. You might misclick, or in some matchups it's okay, like you start E because you wanted to invade. But yeah, the sooner you can get level W in lane is good because you play versus a champion who can easily run you down, something like a Tristana, and then you're not really looking to trade with the Tristana early on anyway. So you want, like, whenever she jumps onto you, then you can dash away. So that's maybe a situation where ultimately you end up at level 2 with having WE combo. So that's completely fine. And now we're going to talk about the combos that you could do here. So sometimes you play against people or champions who are very mobile. So that means they have dashes. Let's say Lucian mid, for example. So if you finally end up hitting your E onto Lucian mid, you don't want to W immediately. Because while you W or while you have E, you might dash away to here and now you missed all of your damage. Or think of something like a ZW for example. So typically what you want to do against those champions, you could E, wait until the root goes off, and only then when there's a seed, now you W. So that's why EW could be a great combo. Another thing about EW is that when you E and then you W, you will hide your E animation. So look at this. Now you see very clearly that I do chain and W. But look at the difference. Now I do EW and you see the E animation like was basically hidden. So again, I'm going to show you one more time. So EW and the E animation is very much hidden. I still don't like this because the problem is this is very unrealistic to hit in lane. This will almost never work because you will almost always have something in between here. So let's say you have a champion or let's say minions. Typically you have minions here in between. What's the problem with minions? Well, you can't really do the EW combo because I W on my opponent, but this is the target that gets rooted because it was in the way when I was doing my E. So then what is a combo that I like to do? Instead of the EW combo, I like to WE combo. Because now I'm on my opponent and now the root goes off on my opponent. And typically when you have minions in between here, then yeah, this is just the best combo to hit your opponent with. Okay, now once you hit level 3 on Leblanc, the standard combo is going to be very straightforward. You W onto your opponent, you E them afterwards, and then you do Q to proc your E damage here, or to proc your Q damage with your E. So whenever I'm just laning, this will be my go-to combo. Just in lane, once I hit level 3, this is going to be my combo, just W, E, Q onto them. Right. Now you might say, okay, but didn't you say that at level 2, this is the best combo? Q, W, and then it would only be normal to follow that up with E? Yes, that's fine. The only thing with that is that, like I said, against good players, they don't often let you get into QW range to E afterwards then. So typically what I do is, like, especially when you hit Q, they're not going to let you W onto them. They're just going to respect you. So then I like the W combo a lot more, where then you EQ. Because like I said, they don't expect it as much that when you W onto them, when you don't have Q onto them. They don't expect it as much. That's why this combo is a lot more guaranteed in the higher elos. But honestly, if you play in the lower elo bracket, you might as well do this combo, QWE. But if you play in the higher elos, I think it's best that you do WEQ. Right? This has more chance of succeeding in the higher elos. Now this combo is really good because it allows you to do a lot of damage. Like for example, like if I do WEQ, it does a lot of damage and I can auto attack in the meantime here. So I can get off a lot of damage. Now a great tip with this is why I like this combo a lot better, where you WEQ, is also because in lane you will have minions, right? You will have minions here, here, here. So typically what happens is when a minion is low, I will W onto the minions so that I can kill them. And now my opponent thought, hey, he thought he was safe because he was standing behind minions, but I killed them with my W. So now the minions are dead and now I get a free chain onto him and then I can follow up with Q. And that is a lot easier to hit because they don't expect it as much. They get surprised than when you just walk up to them and you like expect to hit this, right? That's a lot more dangerous, a lot more difficult to hit. Now, sometimes you will have to kill the minions and your W will not hit your opponent. For example, let's say the minions are here. If I W here to kill the minions, then I won't hit my dummy here, my opponent with the W, but at least I get an EQ trade-off, which I otherwise would not have been able to get off. But if you can, if the minions are closer to your opponent, or you can wait until your opponent walks closer to the minions, then you can just W and kill the minions and hit your opponent at the same time, and now EQ, right? And that way you can also get amazing trades. Something else you could do with this is you could also do, so you don't have to WEQ, you could also do WQE. So WQE. Again, this is more for the burst. When you do W, EQ, your Q damage only gets off when you proc the E. So you basically have to wait for this here. You have to wait here and stay in your opponent's range, or at least like relatively stay in their range, in order for your damage to proc. But the benefit is obviously that while this is happening, you can just auto attack. So again, if you don't feel comfortable with doing that, if you're in a scary matchup, then you could just W somewhere here and then try to QE and now you just get out. Because when you QE, you're not necessarily looking to stay in range and hit them, right? You're looking for the initial damage here with the QE. This is the initial damage, and now you're okay with getting out. So typically, when you are in a very scary matchup, just W forward, QE and you get off some good damage and you're almost impossible for the enemy to hit you. And then something else you could do is versus melee champions, typically like an Irelia who dashes onto you or onto one of your minions. You might even get E off, then Q, and then you W onto them, right? Keep in mind, this is not going to happen a lot. Something else I quickly want to mention is that sometimes when I coach people, they seem to have a misconception. So let's look at this. So right now I have Electrocute, so you're not going to see, so I'm quickly going to proc Electrocute. So that now we can test it good. But look here at my damage. If I E and I Q, and now I W, 422 damage. And if I E, Q, and proc the Q with my W, also 422 damage. So if you E, whether your Q gets procced by your E or by your W while you're Eing as well, it doesn't matter at all. Once you hit level 6 on Leblanc, there are many different combos you could do, and they could be very overwhelming, but I'm going to teach you how to do them and when to do them, and yeah, it's going to be quite simple actually. It's not complicated at all. So let's start off with the basic combo that you want to do between level 6 and level 11. There's objectively typically a combo that's best between level 6 and 11, and it's this combo. E into RE into Q into W. The reason for it is you keep your opponent locked in place. It's great for ganks, and you can also do a lot of damage with this combo because while you're doing this, auto attack. R, auto attack. Q, auto attack. W, auto attack. Auto attack, and then you get out, for example, right? So you can do a lot of damage here with this combo. And you see your opponent constantly, which is also making them they're not really able to trade back onto you, which is really amazing. And if your jungler comes, it's an amazing setup for your jungler. The only thing you have to keep in mind here is this combo looks very great, but it's not always super practical if there are minions between you or if there's an enemy champion between you. Let's say this here is a minion. Look what's going to happen. If I want to start the combo with E, oh, this champion or these minions are in the way. So therefore, you don't always have to start the combo with E, RE, and then like QW. You could also start the combo with QW, ER, and now we go back. All right? This is also something you could do if there are minions in front of you. Now, depending on if you kill those minions with your W, that's gonna like decide how quickly you can go back to your previous W location. Now, this might sound very, very difficult, quite easy. What I mean with that is, look, if I W and I E, and now I want to go back, I can't, because I still have to hit my ult E, and that's going to be blocked by this. So if I W forward and I hit the minions, but they keep on living, then I can't do E and go back, because then my ult E will not hit. It will be blocked by the minions. So if I W and the minions keep on living like this, so the minions here keep on living, I have to wait here until I hit everyone and everything, and now I can go back. So that's quite important. Now, if let's say there's minions here, I W, and now I killed the minions, now I can go back and do it like this. Right? So that's a lot easier. I can a lot quicker go back here. So that's quite important. Then for long range trades, what you could do is actually a very important combo as well. So don't pay attention to what I'm doing here, but I just did that to have my RW. Now with my RW, I could do this combo. Look, up, auto attack, and go back. And now you see from here all the way till here, I attacked somebody who's very far away from me, and I can easily go back all the way to here. So not only can I hit somebody from a very long distance, I can also go back to that distance. So now I'm also very safe. So this is one of the safest trades you could do onto your opponents. And this combo, you want to do it also specifically between level 6 and 11. Because what do we do? You might think, why do you not W and RW afterwards? Well, if I RW, now I can Q and W. Whereas, look, if I W first, now I can't do Q, because now if I do Q, I will have a next Q, so I can't really W onto my opponent anymore. So that's very, very important. Another important reason for that is not because if I RW, this is great in the sense that my W here does more damage than when I would jump onto the dummy here with my ult W. I can prove that to you. Look, 170 magic damage, 175 magic damage. And this is not just because of like my boots or because of items or because of levels. Well, it's because of levels, but this will only improve. Like my W will only become stronger and stronger compared to my ult W until level 11. At level 11, when I put 2 points into my ult, that's when my ult damage will be a lot bigger than my W damage. So before level 11, use your ult W mainly as a gap closer to trade like this. And after level 11, you don't want to do that. After level 11, use your normal W and then you can like flash R onto somebody, right? Because then the RW will do more damage than the normal W. With that being said, let's take a look at the like a very strong and easy and quick way to burst your opponent. We can Q, RQ, W, and then if you want to, you can follow up with the chain and auto attacks. But the main point I'm talking about here is Q, RQ, W. This combo is overused on Leblanc. A lot of people use this, but it's overused in the sense that this combo is actually quite weaker compared to other combos. And I can prove it to you. Look, if I Q here, and I ult Q, and I WE, and I go back, look how much damage I do. 744. Now look how much damage I will do with this combo. I E, I RE, I Q, I W. 744 damage. So the damage that I do is the same with the other combos, but the other combo will chain my opponent twice. So I will do the same damage. And what is the benefit of this combo here? That the damage, and then with my chain, the damage goes off quicker, right? The damage goes off quicker with this combo. But you don't CC your opponent. This here doesn't CC your opponent, right? With the other combo, I can chain my opponent at the very least, and potentially even twice. And I will do the same damage. So I do the same damage and I CC my opponent. Only problem here is, yes, the damage doesn't go off really quickly with the other combo. So this combo is really good to burst someone down. This combo becomes really, really strong at level 13. Why at level 13? At level 13, I have 2 points in ult. My W will be maxed out and my Q will be maxed out. So then everything I need to do this combo, maxed out Q, like 2 points in ult at that point, and the maxed out W, that will do a lot of damage at that point. At that point, you can basically, at level 13, with this combo, you can one-shot every single squishy target in the game with like around 2000 HP. So that's a lot of damage. So then that combo becomes really, really good. When would you use this combo typically? Well, let me show you. This combo, like you said, like you see, it's very like hard to hit this. Like, who's going to allow you to do this, and then to do this? Very unlikely that people are going to allow you to do it. When is it really good? Let's say Dragon is up. You sit here in a bush, you swept it with your sweeper, or you put a control ward in it, you know nobody's here. So somebody here, the enemy ADC walks by, or the enemy mid laner, squishy target, and then you just do this, right? And typically you're not even going to need to chain, you're literally going to one-shot them just with this combo here. So that is when it's really, really good to face check. Like when people are face checking you, that's when it's really, really good. Also to execute people. In lane, if your opponent doesn't have flash, he's in your range already and he's like very low. Before level 13, you can also use it to just execute your opponent real quick. But it's not the highest damage dealing combo, and it's definitely not the highest value combo in the sense that you don't even CC your opponents. Now, an alternative to this combo as well, that would deal the same amount of damage, and that's also relatively like high burst combo, like it's also the damage also goes off quickly, would be the RQ combo. So look, this is not the combo yet, but look, now I have my RQ. This is going to be the combo. So I RQ, I W, I QE, and I go back. This combo will do the same amount of damage as the other combo. This is just an alternative. So the ult Q combo here is going to be an alternative to the Q ult Q W combo. So this, up, and then a QE, this does the same amount of damage. Then we also have another fast burst combo where you're really, really safe. So another fast combo would be this. Q, RQ, E, and it's safe because I can go back all the way here. I could even do this with flash. So I could W forward flash, Q, R, E, and go back to here. So typically this combo is really good here. If you're fighting, like you're sieging the enemy base here, the enemy ADC is here. So then what could you do? You could W from here, Q, R, E, and then go back to your W. You are safe and you just one-shotted the enemy ADC, for example. Because this is very good at like level 13 when you have 2 points in your ultimate and your W and your Q is maxed. So that's when this combo is really good. So to hit people from long range, do this. Now also, you don't have to use your W as a gap close. You could also W onto your opponent, QRE, and still get away with it. And then an extremely versatile combo as well, as I already showed you, but it's the W into RW, right? So it's W into RW. It's very strong. You could do this at the same time, basically. So if there's like a lot of enemies here, the benefit of this combo is that it does a lot of damage. Wait, I'm going to have to clear the dummies. I'm going to have to place new ones. So 4, The benefit of this is that it does AoE damage. You can do a lot of AoE damage at the same time. Look, I did W and ult W. So I do a lot of damage to the dummies at the same time. So another way why, or another reason why the W-RW combo is really good is because you can blow up an entire backline at the same time. So I taught you combos like this, for example, this combo here. It's great, but it's great versus one target. Leblanc can also do a lot of AoE damage with her W and her ult W. Especially after level 11, or from level 11, her RW does an insane amount of damage, more than a normal W, so you can do a lot of damage with that. You could do something like this, you W to the side, and then you hit everybody and you go back. Or if you really want to, even if you're willing to die, sometimes you just want to die on Leblanc, like you don't want to die, but you flash over the wall, you W everyone, and then you ult W everyone to do even more damage, and now obviously your W is over the wall, so you hit everybody twice, but now you're probably gonna die if you don't have Zhonya's, right? So, but it could be worth. This could be worth to do it. It could be worth to die here if you can get like 4 people in the enemy team, or 5 people in the enemy team, or 3 people in the enemy team, super, super low. So that's when this combo would be really good. Because here, if I W, I only hit the first 2 targets, and now I hit everybody. So that could not be good enough for you. If you want to carry the game, sometimes you're gonna have to hit everybody with both abilities. That is everything for LeBlanc combos. Hopefully it wasn't too overwhelming. Hopefully I was able to explain it to you in a good way where you really understood it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments down below. Once more as well, if you're interested in my coaching, feel free to check out the link in the description down below. And obviously don't forget to like and subscribe. And hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye.